It's an elite fight. It's one of the best and most high-level fights of our generation, and we are lucky to be watching it. So I'm grateful, and so should you be. I think it's going to be a show this weekend, and good luck to both competitors. What is going on, guys? We're back again for another edition of the Lucrative MMA Betting Podcast. We have got a banger of a card. The entire card is littered with high-level fights, and I cannot wait to break it down for you. I believe there's going to be many underdogs that cash this weekend. I believe there's going to be some dominant performances, some great finishes, and some of the most high-level fights we've ever seen in the history of the UFC. I'm also going to be doing a bonus section in this episode where I do a little Q&A and ask questions that some of my audience has asked me on Twitter, as well as bringing back the Wheel of Fortune, where I will be giving away a free prize to somebody who commented on my last video. So stick around for that, and make sure you comment on this video to be in with a chance to win that prize next week. But without further ado, let's get into this absolute banger of a UFC 311 main event. All right, boys, I'm fired up for this one. So we've got the rematch in the main event. Islam Makachev is taking on Arman Tsarukyan for the second time. Their first fight came back in 2019, so a very, very long time ago. Both fighters have grown massively, and I'm really excited to break this one down for you. So Islam Makachev has currently got a absolutely stellar record of 26-1, with Arman Tsarukyan having an also very impressive record of 22-3. Currently, Islam Makachev is sitting as a -410 favorite, which is similar to the line he was before. When he faced Arman Tsarukyan in the first fight, he was lined about the same price. The underdog price tag on Arman Tsarukyan is a massive +310. Well, boys, I didn't think it was going to be a situation where I would ever be seeing Arman Tsarukyan at +310. But here we are. He's fighting one of the greatest fighters in the lightweight division, and maybe one of the greatest fighters in the lightweight division history. I really, really rate Islam Makachev as a very high-level fighter. So there's many things we can speak on about this fight. I think the first port of call is to speak about their first fight, because as we know, this is a rematch. Anytime that there's a rematch, you always need to go back and watch their first fight, look at how that played out, because it can provide decent clues to how the next fight's going to play out. So first thing, there's actually a very big age difference between Islam and Arman. So Islam is 5 years older than Arman Tsarukyan. Arman is 28 at this point, and Islam is 33. So they fought about 5 years ago. So Islam was almost the same age Arman is now 5 years ago. 5-year age difference, right? So at the time, Islam Makachev was 28 years old. So Arman Tsarukyan was only 23 years of age. And Arman Tsarukyan was actually coming on short notice in that fight. I believe he had about 3 to 4 weeks short notice. Even though there's a 5-year age difference in between both, I think it's going to be a lot more competitive and close, or at least both fighters are going to be a lot more close to their prime this time around than they was last time around, right? Islam was way more seasoned at that point, and now Islam isn't way more seasoned anymore. You know, Arman is coming into his prime at this point. Maybe he's not in his prime yet. I think Islam is definitely in his prime, but you get what I'm trying to say. On top of that, Arman has a full camp now. These two things here are what I like to call intangibles, and they may affect the fight. Let's speak about that first fight. So the entire fight was a wrestling match, right? Arman Tsarukyan almost had no striking in that fight. He didn't want any part of Islam Makachev striking. Every time Islam got space and tried to strike, he instantly shot a single leg or a double leg or clinched him up and pushed him up against the cage. He made the entire fight a wrestling match. He did not want to strike with Islam Makachev. It was an MMA wrestling match. It was very, very exciting. Most times when you get 15-minute grappling affair, it's not exciting, but this was very, very exciting. You know, Islam had full mount. Arman Tsarukyan managed to get him down once. Islam reversed him a lot, and you know, Islam was just a stronger guy in that fight. And that's exactly what you would expect when you have a 28-year-old taking on a 23-year-old, especially when that 23-year-old is coming up on short notice. Arman definitely put up a very, very good fight. The first round particularly was very, very close, but Islam just beat him to the position a little bit more. Islam just had a little bit better cardio. Islam was just a little bit stronger, a little bit more ready for that fight than Arman Tsarukyan. Skill for skill, they were close, but physicality-wise, experience-wise, prime-wise, strength-wise, it wasn't very close. Islam was by far the better party in that matchup. I think this fight is going to be more about skill set than about physicality and strength, which was really the tail of the first fight. So I actually think this fight is going to be very different than the first fight. Very different. I think it's going to be so different that we might see a lot of striking in this fight, whereas we saw no striking in the first fight. So, first of all, I'm predicting the fight to be completely different. Am I predicting the fight to be a completely different result? No. I'm going to say Islam Makachev wins this fight. And the reason I'm going to say that is because, one, I'm predicting the fight to have a lot more striking than the first fight. And I actually think that Islam Makachev has improved his striking maybe even more than Arman Tsarukyan. Islam is a seasoned striker at this point. He arguably outstruck Dustin Poirier, Alexander Volkanovski, and Charles Oliveira. 3 very, very good strikers. And Islam arguably won the striking in all of those fights. If he didn't win the striking, then he was at least even in those battles. And I think that's saying something. Do I think Arman Tsarukyan would win the striking against those 3 guys? I honestly don't. Would he even win the striking against any of them? I don't know. I probably don't think so. Now, Arman is definitely a better striker than he was before. And so that's why I think we're going to see more striking. Arman just didn't want to strike. He was kind of scared of it. So he just shot in. But I don't think he's going to be scared this time out. He's definitely leveled up his striking a lot. But there is something, there's an equalizer in this fight, right? It's that Arman's fast. He hits decently hard. And Islam, I don't think, has a great chin. Right, he got wobbled a little bit by Dustin Poirier. He got cut open and hurt by Dustin Poirier. He got wobbled a little bit, dropped, wobbled by Alexander Volkanovski. And he obviously has been knocked out before against Adriano Martins. He's been completely flatlined, So I definitely think there's a chance and there's a world in which Arman Tsarukyan has some great tricks up his sleeve and lands a big, big shot on Islam Makachev and hurts him in this fight. I think both fighters are going to have their moments. I ultimately think Islam Makachev is going to come out with the win. I think there's value in Arman Tsarukyan's price tag at plus 310. He may be worth a 1 unit shot for me just to have some money on the line. Overall, I do think that Islam's just a better striker, a little bit better of a counter wrestler, more experience, more in his prime, 5-round experience. And I think that's going to push him over the edge here. But I think it's going to be a very competitive fight. I think it could be like an Alexander Volkanovski versus Islam Makachev 1 type of fight where both fighters have good moments, but Islam is the rightful winner. Last thing about this fight, this is an absolute generational fight. It's an elite fight. It's one of the best and most high-level fights of our generation, and we are lucky to be watching it. So I'm grateful, and so should you be. I think it's going to be a show this weekend, and good luck to both competitors. And the next fight we have up is Umar Nurmagomedov putting his undefeated record on the line against the current champion, Merab Dvalishvili, who is putting his undisputed championship bantamweight title on the line. Merab, the champion, is coming into this fight with a record of 18 wins and 4 losses, with Umar Nurmagomedov coming in with a record of also 18 wins with no losses. Umar Nurmagomedov is a massive favorite in this fight at minus 310, with the underdog price tag on Merab Dvalishvili coming back at plus 250. I can't lie, when I first saw this matchup announced, I did not expect Umar to be this big of a favorite. Now, I definitely thought he would be favorite. I almost knew he would be favorite because of his skill set, because of his undefeated record, because he is cousin to Khabib Nurmagomedov, one of the greatest fighters we've ever seen in the sport. This obviously was going to be backed by the market, was going to be backed by square bettors, maybe sharp bettors, we'll find out, but definitely square bettors, right? Definitely people who don't really understand the sport are just going to smash Umar Nurmagomedov no matter who he fights, just because he's 18-0 and because he's got the Nurmagomedov surname. But I didn't expect them to be this wide, right? I did not expect the lines to be this wide. Merab Dvalishvili is an absolute force. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Umar. I don't care if you're Dominic Cruz in his prime, TJ Dillashaw in his prime. Like, going up against Merab Dvalishvili is a tough go for anyone in the bantamweight division. I'm not going to lie, boys. I'm having a really, really hard time dissecting this fight. And I think the main reason for that, when I really think about it, is that we have not seen Umar go through almost any adversity in his career. I mean, he got dropped by Bekzat. Morozov was kind of resisting in the first round a little bit before he got submitted. Corey Sandhagen was resisting for the entire fight. He was anti-grappling very well, but he didn't really ever do any damage to Umar. Didn't really put anything on him. First round was very tight. Outside of that, Umar kind of just edged it everywhere. So yeah, like, the guy's never really gone through any adversity, and he hasn't really fought high-level guys. So it's very hard for me to sit here and know how the fight's going to play out when he's taken the biggest step up in competition that he's ever taken. He's taken on the current bantamweight champion. Some say could go down as the bantamweight GOAT if he continues his run, because his style is just so dominant. Like, how can you honestly sit here and say it's easy to tell how Umar is going to respond to this type of fight? Like, we know Merab, right? I know Merab very cleanly. Merab's been in wars. He's faced adversity. Marlon Moraes fight, I've seen him push through. Ricky Simon fight, didn't tap out. Like, I've seen the guy in back and forth fights, in wars, in 5-round fights, multiple times, going the distance, pushing hard late. Like, I've seen this guy in multiple different realms of the fight against many different high-level competitors. I mean, Henry Cejudo, Jose Aldo, Peter Yan, Sean O'Malley, Marlon Moraes. I mean, this guy has had to fight the who's who of the bantamweight division. I know everything there is to know about Merab Dvalishvili. Umar's still a mystery to me. The guy is elite. I said about 3 years ago that Umar could beat current bantamweight champion Peter Yan. Right, 3 years ago, Peter Yan was champion. People called me stupid. People said it was too early. People said I was an idiot, right? I stand by that. I believe he could have beat Peter Yan at that point in time. Obviously, I believe he can beat him now. So it's not like I'm low on Umar. I'm very high on Umar. I think this guy's an elite fighter. There's just a lot of question marks. There's a lot of question marks, and it doesn't matter who tells you otherwise. There is a lot of question marks on the Umar side. Now, let's speak about Merab Dvalishvili. He's going to go into this fight. He's going to push forward. He's going to throw a bunch of strikes. He's going to try and outpace Umar, as always, as he does to everyone. There is one big difference in this fight than I've seen in a lot of Merab's other fights. So, you know, in a lot of Merab's other fights, he was way more physically imposing than his opponent, and/or had way better grappling, and/or had way better cardio. Now, I can't sit here, and this goes back to the question mark point, I can't sit here and confidently say that he's going to be way more physically imposing than Umar. Umar's not the most physically imposing guy of all time. Like, I don't think he's like his cousin Khabib. You know, Khabib was just a pure powerhouse. Umar's not like that, but he's very slick. He's still very strong. It is hard for me to see Merab doing what he did to basically everyone else. I mean, even in the Jose Aldo fight, he couldn't get Jose down, but he just pressed him up against the cage. He was just stronger than him, bullied him. It's hard for me to see Umar get bullied in this fight. Maybe the fight goes later and he can't sustain Merab's pace, because I believe Merab has the best cardio in MMA history. So there is a potential that the physical intangibles show itself, but only after the cardio has seeped in my opinion. So one, I can't confidently predict that Merab's going to be able to get his physicality game going, which is how he wins fights. I can't confidently predict that Merab's going to get his wrestling game going, which is how he wins fights, because Umar is such a great wrestler with a deep background in the martial art. And then the third way Merab wins fights is cardio, and you can add in like pace, pressure, cardio, volume, that type of stuff, because it all does come down to cardio. The only reason he can throw 200 strikes is because of cardio. And that one I'm a little bit more confident in, right? The first two, it's like, fuck man, that's like 50-50 to me, honestly. It's so hard for me to be honest. Actually, it's not even 50-50. I don't think he's going to be able to just grapple Umar like that. I think Umar's just better grappler overall. So the last one, the cardio point, is kind of where I give a lot of credence to Merab. And it's not because Umar's cardio is bad, because it's not. Like I said, man, Merab's got the best cardio in MMA history. I don't think Umar's got better cardio than Merab. I'll put a lot of money on it that he doesn't have better cardio than Merab. So I do think when the fight gets into round 3, 4, and 5, like I expect it to do, I think that, you know, the tides could maybe turn, or Merab could start to get his game going a little bit more. But obviously it heavily does depend on the dynamic before that fight and how much the pace was before those rounds, because if the pace is slow in round 1, 2, and 3, Umar's going to be fine for 5 rounds, right? If Merab's able to get some type of pace going early, then obviously it gives more credence to the cardio perspective. Now, let's speak about the striking. I've spoken about the wrestling, right? I think if anyone's getting wrestling success here, it'll be Merab with the cardio wrestling, or Umar with the actual wrestling and grappling. I think there's a chance Umar gets top time here. I think there's a chance Umar takes the back here. I think there's even a chance Umar gets a submission here. I think Umar's the way better grappler when you're talking about jiu-jitsu. In terms of wrestling, it's a little bit more even. I still give the edge to Umar. Tenacity, pace, pressure, cardio, all of that stuff goes to Merab. Now the striking, which oftentimes when you get two grapplers, they just strike each other. So I think the striking is kind of a very interesting talking point here. And it may be the literal decider of the fight. So it's very important to talk about. I think Umar's the better striker. I think he's the better kicker. I think he has better range control. I think he has better distance management, same as range control. And I just expect him to be winning the exchanges on the feet. I'm not sure who's got a better chin. I have seen Merab cracked multiple times, whereas I've only seen Umar crack the once. So I kind of want to say that Merab has worse strike. He definitely has worse strike and defense. Maybe a worse chin. I mean, he seems very durable. Again, like speaking out loud, I think that's a little bit of a question mark, you know, who's more durable? I don't really know at this point in time. And it all really comes back to what I said at the start, boys. Like, Umar is such a mystery because he just faced no adversity. But then we have to give him some credit for that. The reason he's faced no adversity is because he's just so fucking good. He's so good, and he doesn't put himself in any position to face adversity. Very, very tough one, boys. I'm going to say Umar Nurmagomedov becomes champion. I've believed in him from when he had his UFC debut. I said he would beat Peter Yan 3 years ago. So I'm going to pick him to win. But I'm a gambling man. And let me tell you something now. Merab Dvalishvili at massive underdog prices, defending his championship. You know, we got a champion at a massive underdog price. Like, it's very intriguing to me. Now, do I play it? There's no guarantee I play this one, boys. I might sit it out. I'll be upset if he wins, but there's definitely a way in which Merab wins this fight. You know, I definitely think he could win via pace, pressure, tenacity, and volume, doing more, making it gritty with Umar. Just going like pace for pace with him, going cardio for cardio, making him tired, wearing him out. Just different shape. You know, Merab's in a different shape than any other human on this planet. At least that fights in the UFC. I'm very confident in saying that. And so he always has a chance to win against anyone. I don't care how deep their skill set. But I just believe that Umar's going to be able to stay on the outside, throw his kicks, counter grapple when he needs to, maybe get the back once or twice in the 5-round fight. And I actually give him a little bit more finishing upside as well. So, you know, as I said, Merab's more reckless than Umar, gets hit more than Umar, hurt more than Umar, and I think Umar's the better jiu-jitsu fighter. So I'm going to go with Umar Nurmagomedov to become the new champion, 19-0, bring in a new era at the bantamweight division, a new Dagestani era. And yeah, that's my prediction. But if anyone's taking a shot on Merab, I do not blame you. I completely understand it. And maybe like I'll look at a point spread or something like that, thinking that Merab can maybe win 1 or 2 rounds. I'll have to look at the odds and make my decision based on that. But that's my prediction, boys. Umar becomes champ. Next fight is Jamahal Hill versus Jiri Prochazka. This is a great matchup in the light heavyweight division a couple of years ago, and this would have been for the title. But because of Powhatan, these guys are definitely not fighting for the title anytime soon. So Jamahal Hill is coming into this fight with a 12-2 record against Jiri Prochazka, who has a deep MMA background with a deep record of 30 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. So currently Jamahal Hill is a favorite, which is interesting because I saw him as an underdog not too long ago. So Jamahal Hill is a -120 favorite, with Jiri Prochazka sitting as the +100 underdog. So when this fight was originally announced or spoken of or rumored of, or I believe was actually set a couple of years ago, instantly I was like, okay, I'm going to bet Jamahal Hill. I don't know if they actually announced the fight, but I think it was in talks or something. And I thought to myself, I'm going to bet Jamahal Hill. You know, as a gambler, anytime fights are even spoke of, instantly I'm thinking who I'm going to bet. And I'm thinking, all right, it's probably going to be about even. And I think it would have been just like it is now. And I'm going to bet Jamahal Hill. And the reason I said that is because I just believe that Jiri Prochazka can't keep taking punishment the way he does. And we saw that in the Alex Pereira fight twice. We've almost seen that in a couple of other fights where he's literally got knocked out in the cage and still won, like Dominic Reyes. Even on his debut, Volkan dropped him to 1 knee at one point. So the guy keeps on getting hit. You know, his durability is strong in terms of the way he recovers, so it's more his recoverability, but I don't think his chin is the best. He gets dropped, wobbled, hurt in a lot of fights. Basically, every single fight this guy fights, he gets hurt and wobbled. And let me tell you something about Jamahal Hill. That guy can hurt and wobble you. He's done it, again, against almost everyone he's fought. Against Glover Teixeira, fucked him up, wobbled him. And he's got a couple decisions on his record, but the guy runs through a lot of people, man. He hits hard. He's a big guy, light heavyweight. He's got good knees up the middle. He throws a lot of strikes, a ton of strikes, ton of volume. And, you know, at the end of the day, if you're going to throw 100, 200 strikes and land most of them in a fight, if you're a light heavyweight, you're going to knock someone out eventually. So when you got someone like Jamahal Hill who's going to throw a lot of strikes, going to land a lot of strikes, who's hurt a lot of people, going up against someone who just loves to get hurt and hit in all of his fights, you're going to lean the Jamahal Hill side, or at least I am, right? Now, I do think that as the years progressed, you know, the 2 years have gone on since I first thought about this matchup, I'm not as confident in Jamahal Hill now. You know, I do think that there's a little bit more scope for Jiri to win the fight. I don't exactly know why that is. It's not like the skill sets have changed that much. Maybe it's recency bias seeing Jamahal Hill knocked out for the first time. You know, I know he can be knocked out now. I know he can be wobbled and cracked bad. Whereas before that, we didn't know that. The guy could have had an iron chin for all we knew, right? So I think maybe there's some bias in that fight. I also seen him rock up to that fight in terrible shape, you know, very overweight, big gut hanging out. And that was a bad look in my opinion. You know, I don't like to see that. And obviously his subsequent rants on YouTube and Twitter, you know, seeing him knocked out, seeing him out of shape, seeing him rant on Twitter, like these things just, you have to cap them in a little bit, boys. You know, you definitely have to cap a knockout in. The Twitter stuff, obviously not so much, because people can talk shit on Twitter and still be champion. It doesn't really matter. It depends on their personality. But seeing him out of shape, knocked out, and then you add the Twitter thing in, like it's not a good look, right? So I think that's maybe why I'm not as confident in Jamahal Hill this time around, but I still think he knocks Jiri out. You know, my prediction is Jamahal Hill via knockout, and I don't need to say too much more about it, boys. I mean, I've broken down the entire fight. Like, I think the way Jiri wins the fight is by weathering the storm from Jamahal and coming on late. But why I'm quite confident in Jamahal still is because I believe that even though Jiri's path to victory, obviously he can get early knockouts, light heavyweight, he hits hard, anyone can. But, you know, Jiri's majority path to victory is coming on in round 2 and round 3 and breaking Jamahal Hill with pace and pressure. And I think a lot of people will be believing that as well, right? A lot of people on the Jiri side are probably saying to themselves, well, he's just going to break Jamahal Hill with pace and pressure like he did to Rakic or like he did to Volkan or almost anyone he's ever fought and won, right? I don't think they understand how much of a dog and how much heart Jamahal Hill has. I mean, we've seen Jamahal Hill go 5 rounds with Glover in a fight where, yes, he was dominating, but he did get taken down late into that fight. Glover got to dominant positions, and it was a grueling fight, man. You know, Jamahal Hill took his lickings in that fight as well. He got cracked hard in that fight as well. And he kept on coming. Great cardio. He showed heart in that fight. And the main fight he showed heart in, which is kind of like a different mentality, and a lot of people don't have this mentality, and a lot of people won't even understand it, which was against Paul Craig, you know, when he got his arm broken. And he didn't tap at all. He actually tried to punch Paul Craig with his broken arm while it was flailing off the bone. Go and rewatch that, because I did. Go and rewatch that fight, boys. He gets his arm completely snapped, right? The bone is snapped. The arm is flopping around because the bone is not strong anymore. The mentality, I don't know if he realized. I think he realized because, you know, after the fight was finished, he kind of looked at it and he was just pissed off. He didn't really freak out or anything. So I think he knew it. The mentality to, first of all, not tap. First of all, let your arm get broken. And third of all, try to punch the guy with your broken arm. Just like try to pull it out with force after it's flopping about. Like, I don't think people understand the mentality there. There's something not right in the head. Like a lot of these MMA fighters do have, right? There's something where he will go to the ends of the earth to win a fight, you know, and he proved a lot to me in that loss. He also proved that his jiu-jitsu maybe not the best, so that's not good going up against Jiri, because who knows, this should be a striking fight, but if the fight gets to the ground, I do probably favour Jiri a little bit there. But yeah, I think that the mentality behind Jamahal Hill, the heart he has and the dog he has in him is going to make it hard for Jiri to just break him in round 2 and round 3. I mean, people are thinking that he's just going to run through him, you know, if he gets into the late rounds. I don't believe so, man. I think Jamahal Hill has arguably better cardio than Jiri, at least on par. And then I think he's got arguably more heart, or at least on par. Now, he's a bit of a head case, so is Jiri. Like, these guys are similar, man. I think both of them will fight to the end. I think you need to knock both unconscious to beat them, or the ref has to jump in. So I don't think it's going to be easy for Jiri to just break this guy down with pace and pressure. So I'm going to go with Jamahal Hill here. I think he's too clean on the feet. At the end of the day, I think his 1-2s are too clean. I think they're going to be landing easy. I think the hooks are going to be a big thing in this fight. And I think Jamahal Hill is going to win this fight via KO. Next fight on the card is my man Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. Now, Beneil Dariush coming in with a 22-6-1 record, and Renato Moicano has a 25-1 record. That's 20 wins, 5 losses, and 1 no contest. Currently, Renato Moicano sitting at a -170 favourite, with Beneil Dariush coming in with an underdog price tag of +145. First of all, I want to shout out to Beneil Dariush, man. This guy went on like a 7-0 run in the UFC and became one of my most profitable fighters in UFC history. Now, he's kind of lost that title now because I did back him in his last 2 fights, and he lost those fights against Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan, got knocked out badly. So he's kind of dropped down a little bit, but I still got a lot of love for Beneil. He's still massively profitable for me in MMA. I mean, I remember betting on him as an underdog against Carlos Diego Ferreira +100. I remember betting on him as an underdog against Mateus Gamrot +190, +200 range. I remember betting on him even against Scott Holtzman at like -190, like just crazy lines, all of those, every single one of them. And so I love Benny. You know, he's got a great skill set, beautiful scrambles, good striking. All of his fights are exciting. He's willing to just bite the mouthpiece and swing in the pocket, even though he doesn't have a good chin. I mean, the guy is a very, very exciting fighter and very, very high level grappler and MMA fighter overall. He's coming in against Renato Moicano, who is also a very, very good fighter. You know, he's a great MMA fighter all around, great cardio, decent striking, very good grappling, very good jiu-jitsu, heavy top game, great at finding the back, rear naked chokes, and great at doing damage from all positions on the ground. A lot of people take you down but don't do damage. But Moicano definitely doesn't do that. You know, he wants checks, money Moicano, so he's definitely trying to get those bonuses. This is a very intriguing fight for me, man. You know, on the one hand, it's very hard to back Beneil Dariush coming in off 2 KO losses. I mean, that's a big thing, right? We know that his chin's not good. It's been proven time and time again. It's now been proven 2 times on the trot with Arman Tsarukyan, who doesn't knock anyone out, especially on the feet. And then Charles Oliveira, who of course can crack you. But still, Benny was favored in that fight. Because like skill set for skill set, I think Benny's got this matchup. I think he's going to win the fight. But it's just how much has he got left in the tank? How much has his chin got left in the tank? Is he really that motivated anymore? He's probably lost his title shot. He's probably lost the title contentions. I don't even know if he's, you know, gunning for the title anymore. He's getting older as well. He's aging. He ain't getting no younger, Benny. Like, it's tough, man. But like I said, skill set for skill set, Benny probably should be a favorite here. But he's a plus 145 underdog, you know, which is definitely saying something. And I think that is because of the recency bias. I think that is because of the chin narrative. I think that is because of the motivation narrative, the age, etc., etc. But I'm actually going to go and pick Benny in this fight, man. I'm going to pick Benny. I'm biased to Benny, so maybe I'm being biased again. But I've picked Benny in like almost every fight. I'm like 7-2, so I'm fine with it, you know. Even if I lose this one, it's still going to be massive profit on Benny. But I am going to pick him in this fight. Moicano's not the type of guy who knocks you out on the feet, right? And if Benny doesn't get knocked out on the feet, the guy wins the fight. I mean, unless he's getting knocked out on the feet, the guy wins basically every fight. Like, yes, he got submitted by Chiesa back in the day, but I mean, outside of that, he's basically winning if he ain't getting knocked out, right? For the most part. So I don't really see Moicano knocking him out on the feet. Now, I think Moicano's smart, and I think he's going to know that Benny has a bad chin. And I think he's going to see the last 2 fights where Benny gets knocked out in round 1. And I think he's going to try and knock him out early. I think he might even wobble him early. I think he's going to be smart, try and knock him out early. I think he'll wobble him early, but I think Benny will then wobble him. And I think Benny will crack him. And Moicano wears damage, man. Moicano gets hurt in a lot of fights, boys. A lot of fights. This guy's durable, but we've seen him knocked out, brutal knockout by Rafael Fiziev. We've seen him bloodied up, should have been knocked out, should have been a mercy stoppage against Rafael dos Anjos. And that loss is not aging the best. You know, it wasn't that long ago, and Rafael obviously doesn't look that good these days. We've seen him hurt by Doba, Jalen Turner. Like, it's like every fight this guy goes in, it's kind of like a war, and he gets cracked outside the Benoit Saint Denis fight and he just run through him. Obviously Brad Riddell and a couple of other fights as well. But for the most part, this guy's getting hurt and he's having wars. I think Benny can crack him. I think Benny can knock a lot of people out. Benny hits hard, man. And I think Benny can hurt Moicano in this fight. I also think he can scramble with him, you know, which is where I feel the fight will be won. I don't think Moicano is going to get the back or take him down that consistently. He can do it because he's fucking elite. But I kind of trust Benny to swivel out. Benny's scrambles are absolutely unbelievable, and I think we're going to see them once again in this fight. And if he's able to scramble out and not get grappled, I think he's the better striker. I do think he's the better striker. I think he's less durable, which can even out the striking, but I do think he's the better striker. So I'm going with Beneil Dariush here, plus 145 underdog. I already bet him at a way bigger price. But yeah, I'm going to pick him outright, man. I think Benny's got this one in the bag. I think he should be a slight favorite. Even coming off 2 KO losses. I understand pick him because of the 2 KO losses, but skill for skill, I like him. Beneil Dariush to get the win. Let's go. So in this fight, we've got Reinier the Ridder versus Kevin Holland. The Ridder's coming in with an 18-2 record, while Kevin Holland is sitting at 26-12. And this one is a good old-fashioned pick 'em, boys. So the Ridder's sitting at -110, and Kevin Holland is sitting at -110. Now, the Ridder was actually an underdog all of last week, the week before, since the fight got announced, I believe. And, you know, he was plus 110, plus 100. It's dropped again, -110. He might even go off at favorite. He might even become the -120 favorite by the time the fight comes around. And I completely understand why. And I'll tell you why. It's because Kevin Holland, especially at middleweight, does not do well against grapplers. I mean, we've seen time and time again. You go back to the Derek Brunson fight. You go back to the Marvin Vettori fight. You go back to the Roman Dolidze fight. He's just getting grappled, right? We know that Kevin Holland doesn't have good takedown defense. He can be grappled. Khamzat Chimaev was at middleweight as well. Now, I don't think the Ridder's on the level of almost any of those guys. I would say that, you know, maybe somewhat similar to Marvin Vettori in terms of skill sets. I think Brunson's a way better wrestler than him, Chimaev, and Dolidze is kind of similar to Derrida as well in some degrees. So, you know, I wouldn't be looking at the Brunson fight and the Khamzat Chimaev fight when I'm relating it to this one, but I am looking at the Vettori fight and the Dolidze fight a bit, and I actually bet on Dolidze there as an underdog, plus 125. He cashed, obviously, a rib break, so I didn't really celebrate that one, but he did get him down. He was winning the entire round. And I think that that's what can happen here, you know. I don't think Derrida has the best takedowns of all time, but he's got good judo. And I think that Kevin Holland is used to defending traditional doubles and singles, but those judo throws, I don't think he's really used to defending them. So I think that he'll have some tricks up his sleeve, Derrida, and he might have some trips up his sleeve as well. You know, I think he'll be able to get into some grappling scenario, maybe trip Kevin Holland. And honestly, all it will take is one takedown. Kevin Holland's a good scrambler, but I think Derrida is a legit black belt, and I think he's much better than Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland is also actually a black belt, and he's a good fighter. I just don't think he's on the same level as Derrida, in my opinion. And so I think if the fight goes to the ground even once, Derrida could be, well, is live for a sub. He could get a submission right then and there, and or he'll just win the round. So it's like, in my head, he only needs 2 takedowns to win the fight. Now, Kevin might get back up. I'm not saying it's definitely, but I think that he could definitely win the fight with just 2 takedowns. On the feet, he's a liability, but Kevin's not the type of guy who's going to come forward and exploit your defensive issues on the feet that much. He's more of an outside rangy striker, and I think that suits Derrida a little bit better. You know, if you're going to walk Derrida down, match his physicality and land heavy shots in the pocket, I think that can be very dangerous for Derrida. But if you're going to stay on the outside, throw a couple of kicks, I think Derrida can kind of deal with that on the feet. Obviously, he can land a laser beam that, you know, with a straight hand down the middle, and that will knock Derrida out. But Derrida's got some power too. I wouldn't be surprised if he cracks Kevin Holland with a big shot. Kevin Holland kind of backs up to the fence. Derrida goes in, gets a takedown, just spends the entire round on top or submits him. I think the dash chokes are going to be live. I think he'll get him in an arm triangle choke. Maybe, I don't know if he'll submit him. Kevin Holland's got very good submission defense, but he still gets stuck in them sometimes. So yeah, man, I'm going with Derrida in this fight. Obviously, it's a bit of a step up in competition from GM3. Kevin Holland is a mainstay in the UFC, but at the end of the day, I don't think Kevin Holland mentally cares that much about winning. You know, I saw him on YouTube the other day, like literally yesterday actually. Basically, he was saying that his team has game plans and his coaches and game plans, but he doesn't care about the game plan. He just goes out there and fights, and we see that time and time again in his fights. You know, he's not saying that for the cameras, like that's literally proven every time he fights. So I don't think that's good coming in against a jiu-jitsu specialist, coming in against someone who will have a game plan. Kevin Holland is a UFC veteran, but he's kind of like a 5-on-5 fighter. You know, the guy wins one, loses one, wins one, loses one. And coming in against Derrida, who's got higher aspirations than Kevin Holland, I know he's going to want to fight for the title and become champion. I don't think he's going to be able to do it, but I definitely think that the motivation is there and the game plan is going to be there, and the skill set difference on the ground also is there. So for all of those reasons, I'm taking Derrida in this one. And that's it, boys. Now we're going to do the Q&A session. So a couple of days ago, I asked all of my followers on Twitter to ask me any questions they have about the upcoming UFC card. And I got a couple of goodies. So I'm going to put them up on the screen now and I'm going to answer them for you. So a lot of people are asking about Holland versus Derrida, which is interesting. And, you know, I've already answered that one. But I want to speak about this one. This is from Dustin Poirier 753. I didn't know that the Diamond watches my video, so shout out to you, Dustin. But he's saying that, yeah, Pérez versus Rosa. What are the chances that Ailín Pérez just smothers Rosa for 3 rounds and later twerks in her face? Also the Tagir match, what about it going over 2.5 rounds as a parlay piece? So let's speak about the Pérez-Rosa one. Yeah, I mean, there is a chance that Ailín Pérez smothers her for 3 rounds and later twerks in her face. But I think there's more of a chance that she smothers her for 1 round, or maybe 2 rounds. And the reason is because she's got very bad cardio. Now, it's an interesting fight, you know. I think that Ailín Pérez has the style to cause Rosa problems because she's a tenacious grappler. And I've seen time and time again against fighters like Sarah McMahon, who, you know, is a good wrestler, but also other fighters, Rosa get taken down and she doesn't look good from bottom position. She doesn't have great get-ups, I don't think. So I believe that Ailín Pérez can definitely cause her problems in the wrestling. Now, the issue with Ailín Pérez is that she's terrible on the feet, and she gasses out in round 3 every fight. So something I noticed watching Karol Rosa's tape was that her 3rd round is usually always her best round. And something I noticed in Ailín Pérez's tape is like her 3rd round is usually her worst round. You know, she got submitted in round 2 with 5 seconds left on the clock. It was about to be a round 3 submission against Stephanie Egger. Against Jesselyn Edwards in round 3, she looked tired. I thought she was about to fumble that fight. Even against Ashley Evans-Smith in one of the easiest fights of her career, in a fight that I max bet her at -170, she still looked kind of tired in round 3 with no resistance. So I definitely think Rosa can smash her in round 3 here and potentially even get a stoppage in round 3. I'd like to bet Ailín Pérez here because she's a big, she ticks a lot of boxes. She's a big underdog. She's going against someone who has been susceptible to getting grappled before. She's definitely going to grapple. She's tenacious. She's always going to fight for your money. I don't have to worry about her coming in and not doing anything. She's going to fight. So she ticks a lot of boxes as a big underdog. But I'm going to stay away on this one, boys. And the reason is because Karol Rosa is just a way better MMA fighter. She's just a level above. Karol Rosa is one level above Ailín Pérez. She's the way better striker, way better high-level experience, way better cardio, better grappler overall, I think, even though Pérez just goes to it heavily and goes to it more. So for that reason, I have to pick Karol Rosa in this fight. But I understand if you're taking Pérez as a massive underdog just because of the potential that this is women's MMA, kind of close fight. Rosa's probably not going to knock her out on the feet unless it's round 3. And Pérez is going to grapple. So I understand it, but yeah, I'm not going to bet on that one. The other question you ask is, what about the Tagir versus Clayton Carpenter match? What about it going over 2.5 rounds? I like over 2.5 rounds. And, you know, I'm not going to break down the whole fight, but basically, both these guys are so fucking good that they probably shouldn't get finished. You know, when fighters are so high level, and I do rate Tagir as very high level, and I think Clayton Carpenter is, obviously we don't fully know, but I think he is, usually they just don't get finished. Now, I do think there's some finishing upside here, of course. I mean, not every fight is 100% going to go to decision, right? Like, even if I think the fight's going to go to decision, there's probably some potential for it not to be. And I'll tell you those risks now, so you can judge for yourself. So I think Tagir is the better grappler here. So I think if the fight goes to the ground, I think he's stronger. I think he's very slick at taking it back. And I think he's going to be able to maybe get a rear naked choke. I do think Clayton Carpenter is actually good, at least in a submission defense. And I think he's good with jiu-jitsu. He just can play jiu-jitsu. I've seen him hold down a little bit in his career. He has only had 8 fights and he's mostly been dominant, so it's not a lot, but I have seen it. So I think there's some, you know, Tagir rear naked choke upside there. He's very good when he gets the back. And then obviously Tagir doesn't have great striking defense. He gets cracked a lot. Seems very durable, but he gets cracked a lot. Go back and watch that Bruno Silva fight. Like, he's taking a lot of punishment. And Clayton Carpenter, he gets cracked as well, you know. So I think they could swing in the middle and someone could get hurt. But overall, I think that over 2.5 rounds is a good play. I might actually play it myself. So that's the Q&A, boys. And now let's go straight into the most fun part of the entire show, which is the lucrative Wheel of Fortune. I'm gonna spin the Wheel of Fortune, and whoever it lands on is gonna get a 3-month membership to the Elite Zone of my website. Now, the Elite Zone on my website has full card breakdowns of every single fight on the card, has multiple official bets. Like, already we've got like 5 bets for this weekend, and a lot of them are on fights that I haven't spoken about today. You also get all of my regional scene bets. For example, last weekend we had 1 bet on a 1 championship fighter, which cashed with a 2nd round TKO. You also get all of my best parlay pieces for the entire weekend. Usually do really well on those. You also get all of my long shot parlays, which crushed in 2024. So yeah, lots of content in the Elite Zone, and I'm giving someone a 1 month free in the Elite Zone. All right, so let's spin the Wheel of Fortune, boys. I am spinning it now. Let's go. Who's gonna land on it? Who's gonna earn the VIP to make big bucks? It is Small World Lifters. Yes, Small World Lifters. Congratulations, you just won a 3 month of the Elite Zone. So DM me on Twitter, DM me on Instagram, and we'll find out if it's actually you DMing me. Don't try and fraud, because I've already got Small World Lifters YouTube channel, so I can easily verify it. And yeah, man, congrats. If you didn't win this weekend, no problem. You can still go to my website and sign up for an elite package. You don't even have to sign up for the full month. You can just do a trial and sign up for 1 week to get this week's picks and the next 7 days worth of picks if you want. Like I said, tons of content in there, which I've already mentioned. And yeah, you'll get my official picks, etc. for this card. So that's it, boys. I hope you have enjoyed this week's breakdown. I enjoyed it very much. Good fights for me to talk about, and I feel like I've given a lot of good information. Hopefully we can hit some underdogs. Last week on this show, we gave out Christian Rodriguez at plus 230. I bet on him. That was a great underdog hit, so I was very happy with that. Hopefully we can hit another big underdog and try and hit at least 1 a week. So that's it for me, boys. Enjoy this weekend's fights. Good luck on all your bets. Make sure you comment on this video to be in with a chance to win next week's Wheel of Fortune as well. Good luck, boys. Peace out.